to the Pressbox, a lovely Monday evening here at the University of Kansas, and obviously a very special day. If you've been following our Twitter page the last couple of days and my Facebook page and some of the other guys here, obviously we got two very special guests joining us here on the Pressbox. And again, that is at the Pressbox KJHK on Twitter, so feel free to interact with us throughout the show as Max Falkenstien and Glenn Freeman will be joining us. A few more things I want to share about Max Falkenstien's very, very successful broadcasting careers. In his 60-year career at the University of Kansas from 1946 to 2006, Falkenstien covered over 1,750 men's basketball games, 650 football games, a span that included every game in Allen Fieldhouse. So he never missed a game in Allen Fieldhouse from 1946 all the way until his retirement in 2006. He was inducted into the College Athletics Hall of Fame in 1995, also inducted into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame in 2001, and was also named the best college radio personality by the Sporting News. So, Max, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to join us on the show.
Well, you're welcome, Brennan. Good to be here with you guys.
Sweet. Well, Max, ever since your retirement in 2006, obviously a very storied broadcasting career for you. Just kind of share with us what have you been up to here in the Lawrence community since 2006, and what have you been doing with KU basketball and KU athletics since that time?
I've just been hanging around KU athletics. I still go to all the home games.
Okay.
I made a few trips. I went to the national championship in San Antonio.
Very special season.
That was great fun, and make several appearances for KU athletics and wander around and see people and talk to them about KU athletics.
Is it nice to be around, basketball and KU athletics, but not have to be working?
It is. People ask me all the time, do you miss it? And my answer is yes. Parts of it I miss, parts of it I don't. The part that I don't miss very much is getting home from Lubbock, Texas at 3:30 in the morning after maybe a loss or someplace after a loss. But the part that I really miss is the interaction with the coaches and the players. And, when you travel with them, you bond together with them in the airport, on the airplane. And I taught Keith Langford, for example, how to play gin rummy one long night in Denver when we were sitting in the airport waiting for a plane to arrive. So those are the kind of things that I miss. I don't actually miss doing the games that much.
Yeah. And is there a particular reason why that is, or kind of share with us how your thoughts on that?
The reason is, as I just said, the thing that I really miss is bonding with the coaches.
Gotcha.
Players.
Absolutely.
Doing the actual talking on the air, I don't miss that so much.
Yeah.
Although the excitement of it is missing from a guy's life once you get a big part of that.
Yeah, there were a lot of exciting moments.
Man, I'll say yeah.
Hey, so Max, you graduated from KU in 1948 with a degree in mathematics. So just kind of take us through, your college experience and how it's differed from maybe our college experience today, and how you got interested in the broadcasting career. Because usually, as an individual who gets a degree in mathematics, you don't always hear every day as them having a storied broadcasting career. So just kind of take us through how that all got started for you, how your kind of career got started.
That's a long story, actually, but it started when I was in high school.
Okay.
And I got a job. Actually, we came up to the University of Kansas, my biology class at high school, to do one of those classroom broadcasts that were then featured on KFKU. And when the broadcast was over, they asked some classroom type questions. When the broadcast was over, this program director came up to me and she said, "Have you ever thought about being in radio?" I said, "Well, no, not really." She said, "Well, you have a very nice voice and you ought to think about it." So I started thinking about it, and the war broke out, World War II. Yes, it was World War II, not one.
Yeah.
And so an opening occurred at WREN, the local radio station in Lawrence, and I went down as a high school junior and auditioned for the job, and to make a long story short, I got it. And so I sort of got interested in radio, and then I went into the service for 3 years and continued to do some work, PA stuff like that, and some emceeing jobs. And so when I came back after the war, I decided that I wanted to continue in radio, and I reported to WREN, and they rehired me, and the station manager said, he said, the first week I was back, he said, there's a big ball game in Kansas City this Friday night, and we ought to carry it. And do you want to do it? I said, I don't know. I've never done a game, but I'm willing to try it. And it was Kansas versus Oklahoma, then Oklahoma A&M. In the NCAA tournament, they had Bob Kurland, one of the first of the 7-footers, along with George Mikan from DePaul.
Heard of him.
And so I did go down and do the game. Oklahoma A&M defeated Kansas, went on to win their second straight national championship, 45-46. And so then I came back to mathematics class the next day and on the following Monday, and the professor said, listen to you do the game the other night. We felt like we were right there. We really enjoyed it. And so my broadcast career got started not doing Colby and Larned or something like that in a Kansas high school game, but started with an NCAA playoff game, which was pretty unique. But back to the mathematics part, when I was in the service, we were studying to be meteorologists, so we took a lot of math at the University of Chicago, and I was able to apply many of those credits towards my college degree when I came back to KU. So that was the quickest way to get my degree, by majoring in mathematics, and that's what I did. And I remember on the final examination of differential equations, I scored 100, and today I couldn't tell you what a differential equation is.
Man.
But anyway, that's the connection between mathematics and broadcasting.
Wow, that's a really special story to hear that, as a high school junior, you got the opportunity, and it was was it a full-time position with WRE and radio?
Yes, it was. I think I made $100 a month.
Wow. So as a high school junior, and I mean, $100 a month back in the 1940s obviously was a lot more.
Well, not a lot, but it was.
But more than $100 is today. But still, just to have that opportunity, like you mentioned, just was a really unique experience. And
I remember the audition included the phrase "the French chargé d'affaires," and I had taken a little French and subsequently took quite a bit of French in college. But anyway, I knew how to blow through chargé d'affaires, and I think that helped me a lot to get
that had to have impressed them a little bit. I'm sure they're like, Max, man, this guy has a future in radio, and obviously ever since that day, I remember me growing up listening to a lot of KU basketball games, and just, I enjoyed watching it on TV with my dad, but just hearing it on the radio, just like your math professor said, you did a great job of really bringing the game to life and helping us picture that game. And I just want to thank you for giving me that experience, because I think without being that connected and having that much desire for me at a young age to watch and listen to Kansas basketball on the radio, I might not be here today being a KU fan and here at the University of Kansas. So I think really your interest in radio kind of helped spark my interest in radio too. So, and I'm sure both of Max and Tim and Zach, you guys could attest to that your interest in the fact that your success that you've had through KU has really helped us kind of motivate us to hopefully do half as much as you've done in your career. But again,
well, one of the interesting things, Bob Davis and I teamed up for all these years after Bob joined the KU network, and so many people, and that was really kind of the infancy of television basketball, basketball on TV, but so many people would come to us wherever we would go, and they'd say, we really like to watch the games now, it's so exciting, but we always turn the sound down and listen to you guys on the radio. So
I still know a lot of people who do that.
There are.
That's actually what I do. When Brent Musburger and Bob Knight used to cover the KU games, I was like, nope, Bob Davis, here we go.
How do you like Vital? How do you like him?
I mean, he's an icon for sure, but I don't know, that voice, it gets to you after a little while. So
he's very unique for sure.
For sure, and by far one of the icons of his profession.
So Max, kind of take us. Let's kind of stay with the earlier years of Kansas basketball. Early on in your your broadcasting career, you got to see. Obviously, let me start here. I was reading your book, and your dad got involved with the Kansas Athletics, and you grew up. Your dad and Fogg, if I'm correct, they were very close friends, weren't they?
They were indeed. Yes.
Yeah. So you got to grow up watching Kansas basketball early on in those days. So kind of tell me your favorite memories from the first KU championship team in 1951 to 1952, and kind of take me through what some of your favorite memories and your favorite stories have been and were with that very famous and special team in
That-
Jayhawk basketball history.
That was a great team that has maintained its closeness more than any other team we've ever had.
Wow.
A lot of that, I think, is due to Bill Hoagland, who has kind of been the one who's invited everybody to come to his house every 10 years or every 5 years or so. But that was such a unique group of guys, because all of them except Clyde were Kansas guys from little towns. The Kelly brothers from McCune, Bill Lenhard from Newton, Bill Hoagland from Beloit, John Keller from Page City, Bob Kinney from Winfield. And Doc told Dick Harp, he said, you go out and talk to these guys in Kansas, and you tell them if they come here together and play, we're going to win the national championship.
Wow.
And Dick Harp said, Doc, I can't go out and tell a guy something like that. Doc said, well, that's what I want you to tell them. And so Dick went out and they recruited all those Kansas guys, and they got the big turkey, of course, from Terre Haute, Indiana, Clyde Lovellette, to join them. He turned out to be the best player in the country. But it was amazing that all these Kansas guys could come together and achieve the goal that Doc Allen had set for them.
Yeah, very, very special team. And what was your favorite memories about Clyde? Obviously, in one of the posters we'll share that Glenn has there, there's a picture of you and Clyde, you interviewing Clyde. What really stood out about Clyde Lovellette? You know, you talked about him, how good of a player he really was. How did he get to achieve kind of his successes in college, and what made him such a special player at KU?
Well, Clyde was just a great athlete. He was 6'9". He had a sweeping hook shot that he began with, clear down near the floor, which you couldn't even begin to shoot that shot today because they'd jam it right down in your throat. But Clyde was a great shooter. He didn't have great speed. He didn't block all that many shots, but he had a great knowledge of where the basketball was, and he could shoot without facing the baskets. You know, I mean, he just had a great talent. In fact, at the time, he was the only player to lead the nation in scoring and also lead his team to the national championship.
Wow.
So you don't find that combination happening all that often any year. And that team has stayed really close together, and they've been successful in staying alive for a long period of time. The 57 team with Wilt, all of those guys are deceased, all the starters except for Ronnie Lineski, who lives in Lawrence. But the 52 team, Lenhard and Hoagland and Lovellette, B.H. Bourne is gone now from that team, and Charlie Hogue has passed away, and John Keller, but Al Kelly is still on the team. Dean Kelly's gone now, but it was a great team. They just they dominated the final game against St. John's of New York was not even a close game. So it was a great thrill for Kansas and a great thrill for me to be able to broadcast the game back in the pre-television days from Seattle. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and speaking of Clyde, there's a lot of KU legends that you got to cover over the 60 years. And in your book, Max and Jayhawks, you released your top 5 all-time Jayhawks. They were Clyde, Will Chamberlain, JoJo White, Bud Stallworth, and Danny Manning. But you released this book in 1996. I know it's maybe impossible to take any names off those lists, but if you were to add maybe a sixth man between 96 and now.
2006, you mean? Or the first book. Which book are you talking about?
He was talking about the very first Max.
Yeah,
and
I was talking
Jayhawks
about the
book.
first one.
Number one and number
one.
My very first book.
Do you think there's anyone you would add?
That's a good question. I love Kirk Heinrich. Of course, Nick and all those guys that played in that era were tremendous. Rafe was just great. I love Rafe. Paul, you know, when you look at that 97 team, talk about, you know, there's some really great ups and there are a lot of terrible downs, but 1997 was the biggest downer that I think I've ever faced when we had the best team in the country. We went into the NCAA tournament with one loss.
Wow.
And were defeated by Arizona in Birmingham, Alabama. We had 4 NBA starters on that team plus Jared Haas. So, you know, we had the team to do it, but we didn't get that last shot in by Ray from the corner. Actually, Jacques Vaughn should have shot the ball himself, but he passed it over to Rafe, who had to back up to get behind the three-point line to try to tie the ball game, and he missed the shot, and we went down to defeat.
Man, I'll tell you what, that was a game. Obviously, I was very young at that age, but I remember hearing briefly about that game. And again, when you watch Paul Pierce now on NBA Today, and Rafe LaFrentz had a very successful NBA career. Now, Jared Haas is, I believe, a head coach, isn't he?
Yes.
He's now coaching.
And Jacques Vaughn's also coaching in the NBA now.
Yep,
Right.
Jacques Vaughn is for the Orlando Magic. So obviously a very special group of players which is really cool to see them still being involved with the game to some degree today. So
Yeah, because Paul's got to be 35 or 36 years
yeah, I
old.
believe he's 36, and here he was just in the playoffs, still playing
and
well.
Of all the Jayhawks and all the great careers, he's had the best NBA career of anybody except maybe Wilt.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
true.
Paul has just been incredible. And the fact that he hasn't been an all-star all that many times is an enigma to me, because I think he's just tremendous. I can remember one game against Oklahoma. He scored 15 straight points for the Jayhawks.
Wow.
And he was a great player as a collegian, but he's been even better as a pro.
And has that? So were you expecting him to be as good as he has been in the NBA, or?
No, not really, because he was a great player in college, but he wasn't a player like Wilt or even like Bud, who would just light up the scoreboard.
And let's fast forward a little bit to just this year's team. We obviously, with the new one and done rule, college basketball is changing before your eyes. What have those changes been in your eyes? Have those been positive changes or negative changes? And kind of take us through how has college basketball, in your opinion, kind of changed in the last 10 or 15 years?
Well, first of all, I hate the one and done rule. Bill Self hates the one and done rule. I think everybody in college hates the rule, but it isn't our rule, it's the NBA's rule.
Yep.
And I just wish the NBA would loosen up a little bit. The new commissioner is talking like he might have some interest in making a change in that rule. The baseball rule is perfect. You don't have, if you want to sign when you come out of high school, you can sign. If you do go to college, you have to stay 3 years, and that's a great rule. But the one and done rule, it's an enigma. You say, well, I'm so tired of the teams with these one and done guys. Well, Kentucky, doing that very same thing, has played for the national championship in 2 out of the last 3 years. So, if you don't do it, somebody else is going to take those guys, and they're going to beat you with them. So you do take them. You live with what it. I just loved Embiid, and I just wish he could stay. And you knew Wiggs wasn't going to stay probably from the very start, but you kind of thought like maybe Joel might hang around, and I love them both. And McLemore has proved that a one and done guy can make it. He's played a lot for Sacramento this year. But as far as the rules concerned, and as far as the game has changed, the game was a lot better, frankly, in 1952 than it is in 2014, because it's push and shove and use your butt and shove the guys out of the way and grab them and get away with everything you can get away with. In 1952, if you'll watch any of the films of those games, if you touched somebody, it was a foul. And it was a much cleaner game and a lot nicer game to watch. Basketball has just become so physical now.
Do you think basketball is better with three-point line?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the three-point rule.
Yeah.
Ronnie Kellogg and Calvin Thompson, who played for us in 1986, the next year the three-point rule became law, but those guys could light it up, and if they'd had the three-point basket in 86, Ronnie Kellogg would have scored an absolute ton, I'll tell you for sure.
Yeah.
So over the course of your career, you've gotten obviously to call a lot of different KU games. What would you say have been some of your most favorite that you've gotten to call over the years?
Well,
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry to drop the bomb on you
after
like that.
1,750 games,
Yeah.
it's hard to pick out a given one, but certainly the 52 game was great, and the 3 overtime game was one to remember for your life when North Carolina came in undefeated and Kansas had Wilt, and they played 3 overtimes, one of which not even a point was scored.
Really?
And then the Tar Heels beat us, in in the third overtime. That was a memorable game, although
Yeah.
not a pleasant
Of course
memory
not.
to bring back. And then, of course, certain games just kind of stand out in your mind. I remember Indiana came into Allen Fieldhouse with a great team coached by Bobby Knight and with Damon Bailey starring for the Hoosiers, and Jacques Vaughn was a freshman. And in overtime, he hit a three-pointer at the buzzer, and we beat Indiana, which was a tremendous ball game. The crowd just went crazy. When Bill Self and Norm Roberts were coaching for their very first season here at Kansas, we had a great game here. I believe it was against Michigan State, I think. And the crowd just went crazy, and we won the ball game in one of those December preseason games. And in the locker room with the coaches afterwards, Norm Roberts said to Bill, he said, "Man," he said, "I thought people got excited at Illinois." He said, "This is what basketball is all about here at Kansas." And, Allen Fieldhouse is pretty special.
But Allen Fieldhouse, for as long as it has been around, Allen Fieldhouse hasn't not always been the home of Jayhawk basketball. So, Max, kind of take us back a little bit to when you were growing up. Where did you watch Kansas basketball play at?
Well, as old-timers know, it was in Hoke Auditorium.
Okay.
And when we first started broadcasting, when I came back in those first years from 1946 until Allen Fieldhouse opened in 1955, we sat on the front row of the balcony right in the stands. So there were fans here, there were fans here, there were fans behind us, and we had 3 seats in the front row of the balcony, and the noise was pretty bad from the fans sometimes right in your ear. So it was a lot different. And then, of course, now everything's on the computer. You know exactly what percentage each guy is shooting. In those days, you kept your own scorebook with a pen and a rubber eraser on the pencil as well, and that's all you had. You didn't get any statistics. You might have gotten something off the typewriter, mimeographed at the end of the game for the final stats, but it was a lot different.
Yeah, absolutely. And take us a little bit to the national championship game in 2008. Obviously, you retired in 2006, but obviously, some of those players were on the 2006 team as well. So, in 2006, when the team was very young, did you forecast seeing some of those guys, like Mario Chalmers coming in all the way from Alaska as a young player? Did you ever see that team had the potential to win the national championship, or kind of take us to that team, still early on in Bill Self's career there at
in my last year, I sat with Al Marie that's Mario's mother.
Okay.
Al Marie Chalmers in Hawaii on the way back to the airplane to fly back, and she was kind of discouraged at the time, thought it was going to maybe not work out all that well for Mario, and so I told her just to be patient, that time would take care of all of that, and she's remembered that to this day. She reminds me of that, but my career ended with one of those terrible B games, Bradley. In 2006, that was the last game that I ever did for KU, and we had lost to Bucknell earlier, So, no, you can't say that you envisioned a national championship in my last year of 2006, not the way we ended up.
And it was another tough loss the year before against Bucknell, but just to see, with Bill Self still being young in his career, a lot of people said when the following year in 2008 when they were playing Davidson, they said, Davidson, that was another game that KU almost lost.
You're not kidding.
So if KU would have dropped that game to Davidson,
Stephon Curry's not too bad.
Yeah, and he's not too bad now. You kind of forget about really some of the
though.
quality of teams the Jayhawks beat to make it all the way to the title game. Obviously, Davidson, and then North Carolina, obviously, which was a very big game because Roy Williams was
40-12.
40-12. That was
great.
the battle of the big man down low. That was kind of Cole Aldrich's kind of coming out party. So
absolutely.
Did that game kind of hold some meaning to you, seeing former
sure.
Roy Williams as the coach? And
you bet.
Where were you at during that game?
I was sitting in the stands in San Antonio, and I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe when the score was 40-12, and I also couldn't believe the next night when Roy put a Jayhawk on his coach. And he took a lot of heat from the North Carolina people about that, incidentally. But and actually, if Sharon hadn't stumbled, we might not have had the opportunity for Mario to make the shot and win the game.
And that was kind of the play that Bill Self called it the chop play. And all of a sudden, I was on the internet a few days ago, and they said the play has gone viral since that day. They said, Creighton has used the play for buzzer beaters, and Kentucky's using it even in Wichita State. So all these coaches, it was such a big play despite the bobble that, it's kind of taking college basketball by storm. I remember watching a game on ESPN, and Franford Schill was like, well, the chop play any second, I'm expecting that to be here. So, that just says a lot about Bill Self and kind of the coach he is. And what has made Bill Self, in your eyes, such a successful coach at Kansas? Because, everybody says the difference between Roy Williams and Bill Self in terms of play is, Roy Williams is very high tempo, fast pace, get up and down the floor, high scoring, and Bill Self's more defensive. But, what has been the biggest differences between those two coaches in your eyes?
Well, I love both of them.
Oh, yeah, both are obviously great coaches.
There are a lot of differences, however. Roy is very set in his plan, and his philosophy is that if we do what we're supposed to do, I don't care what the other team does, we'll win. Bill, on the other hand, will modify his approach to the game. I've seen him call a timeout 30 seconds into the game, and Roy might never call a timeout. He never believed in using your early timeouts. He wanted to save them till it got later in the game when he felt like he might really have to have them. Roy was meticulous in his attention to detail on every single aspect of the program, and Bill could care less about some things. Bob and I have often laughed that one time we were on the team bus, and Bill said to one of the student managers, or I guess the operations manager, said, "Where are we staying here tonight? What hotel?" and Roy would have known not only the name of the hotel, but what kind of breakfast food they were serving, and whether they had Diet Cokes or Diet Pepsis. And,
That's funny.
And Bill could care less about that kind of stuff. They're both great coaches. They both did. Roy gave us 15 great years. Bill has just been even better.
Absolutely. And the final question here for you, Max, is, Tim, myself, and many of our viewers tonight desire to have a career in the sports industry of some sort, whether it be broadcasting or sports marketing or, even sports agents. What would be some words of wisdom or some kind of tips or advice that you would leave for college students today and young professionals looking to, get in the field of broadcasting or getting the opportunity to work in a sports industry today?
Well, to be able to express yourself without fluffing all the time, and you obviously can do that.
I appreciate
you're a good
that.
speaker. Not to talk too fast. Kids today, I think, have a tendency to talk so fast, and they need to slow down a little bit so people can understand what they're saying. But I used to practice standing in front of a mirror and talking and seeing if I could elocute the words properly, and be able to be understood. It's amazing how many kids today cannot speak without fluffing or messing it up some way or another. As far as it's really hard to. Guys come to me all the time and said, "How can you tell me how to make it in broadcasting?"
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look how I started it. I just fell into it, pure luck. You at least go to school now. You take lessons from people who give you good advice. But just be honest. Don't be critical of the officials. Don't be too much of a screamer. But tell the people what's going on and make them feel like they're at the game and enjoying it along with you. Bob and I always felt like we're here to have fun. Let's just have a good time. It isn't the end of the world either way.
Absolutely. Well, Max, thank you so much for joining us on the first section of the Press Box. And again, really do appreciate your time.
Well, you're welcome.
And it's been an honor for all of us to be able to, for you to share with us about Kansas basketball, and obviously with Bill Self under the realm, a lot more success to come for the Jayhawks. And you're going to be right there along the way, cheering on the Jayhawks right under the basket each and every game. So
I hope so. Thanks.
You'll have to come and join us again too. This wasn't nearly enough time to absorb enough knowledge from you,
Well,
Max.
there are other things we could talk about.
Well, Well,
Well,
maybe
I'll take your word up on that. But again, Max Falkenstien, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Glenn Freeman's going to share with us his process on 3dsportsart.com. Thank you so much. Be right back.
I got no balls to losing. Shocking. Drives it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. Just can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear. We're just buzzed. Just buzzed. You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. He'll be fine. I feel good. Really? No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Buzzed, busted, and broke, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
I got no balls to losing. Shocking. Drives it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. Just can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear. We're just buzzed. Just buzzed. You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. He'll be fine. I feel good. Really? No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
Now they're beating us on the boards out there, guys. This is your territory, Grimson. Do your job.
Grimson.
Hello?
Hi, honey. What? Now? All right. The itsy bitsy spider climbed up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider climbed up the spout again.
I love you, Daddy.
I love you too, sweetheart.
Hey, it's my girl.
You know, my daughter.
Love. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again now.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
Welcome back to the Press Box. We just got done having a very fantastic interview with KU famed broadcaster Max Falkenstien. And again, welcome back. We got more action to talk about as Glenn Freeman, the second guest on tonight's show, is going to join us. Glenn, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, just being here with Max made my year.
Mine too.
Ours too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Glenn is the owner of 3dsports.com in Topeka, Kansas. Glenn, just kind of take us through. Let me quickly show these pictures here of Glenn's 3D basketball pictures, if we can get that thrown up.
Now, remember, note that they're 3D.
These
These
are
need to be
3D
seen
pictures.
in
So
person.
the pictures you are seeing on TV do not do justice to really what they look like in person. And again, we'll have Glenn continue to talk more and more about this process. But again, you can see all the national titles on there, a lot of legendary basketball players, and lots of quality action on those pictures. So Glenn, just kind of take us through the history of these pictures, how they came about, the process, and
Sure.
what kind of gave you the idea in the first place.
Our company was involved in doing some 3D art for the wildlife and fish and game industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so our first endeavors were involved with that. And one day we were in a meeting, a production meeting in Chicago, discussing one of our fish images, which I brought along with me for you to see if you want.
Yep.
And I just got the idea that, why couldn't we do this with KU basketball that was on the thematic, and so we made an arrangement with the 3D printing company we do business with to give us an exclusive agreement for NCAA 3D lenticular art printing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came back to Kansas, and Jim Marchione was, I gave I talked about it with him and said, how would you like to have KU be the first NCAA school to produce a 3D image of their basketball program? And he thought it was a good idea, and he presented it to some people in the athletic department. We showed them some samples of our fish pictures, and I think it was Paul Vandertijk who said, it all started here. We should be the first school to do this. And so the process started. And KU Athletics was very helpful. They gave us all of the images that you see in the two pictures. Mm-hmm. Initially, we were going to have one picture, and because of our rich tradition and history, it morphed into two pictures, and it could probably have been 10 pictures. But,
a lot of history.
Yeah, so we had, over the next year or so, a series of meetings in which we figured out the design, the placement. KU Athletics decided with their committee who they wanted to have appear in these pictures, and during that time we made about 33 different versions.
Wow.
We got to the end version, and at that point in time we were ready to print the pictures on a 3D lens. Mm-hmm. And the 3D lens that they're printed on, which I brought a sample of today, eliminates the necessity to wear 3D glasses to see them in 3D. So the process itself involves just taking the images, cutting them out, using a special computerized program to do what they call layering and interlacing to create the depth, and then we produce an anaglyph, which is a computerized proof. And after the final anaglyph was approved by the KU committee, we produced an actual proof in 3D, and from that proof then we went to the big presses and mass printed them on special presses that would accommodate a lenticular lens.
Wow, what a process.
It is.
Yeah, and real quickly, I believe we have a picture of you guys looking at the 3D lenticular lens, Max and Glenn. Maybe we can throw that up on the screen if we have that available here real quickly.
Yeah,
so there we go. We got
that was what I call a goosebumpy day for me. We were in Jim Marchione's office, and Max and I were looking at a television set on Jim's wall with the anaglyph, which is the proof. And before it's printed, you need 3D glasses to see it in 3D. So we had on those 3D glasses, and we're looking at the images, and Max was making comments and telling stories about this player and that player. It was such a great moment, and he turned to Jim and said, every KU basketball fan should have one of these. And of course, I jumped on that and I said, Max, can we quote you on that? And if I remember right, Max said, "Yeah, you can write it up, Jimmy," or something like that. And so that was a great moment. And for all the work we did, and this was a long process, lots of hours. That was a moment that kind of said to me, we're on the right track, and the things that we're doing are being done the right way. But then Max said, we need to have a book that goes with this so people know who all these people are, and they can, because a lot of people don't know some of these, especially the older players. And so that led us to produce this booklet that accompanies the pictures, which I think is just as important as the pictures.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
in this booklet, every image that you see in the two pictures is described, when players played, what their stats were, when their jerseys were retired, everything that you would want to know about each image in there, even the history of Allen Fieldhouse, which appears in one of the pictures, and the history of the banners, and the Pay Heed banner, and the championship banners. And that became, and to this day I'll never be able to repay him, but that became a huge job that Jim Marchione took on. And we started with the media guide, and we used that as the basis to start this booklet. And I think Jim did more than 50 edits over a few months period of time, right in the middle of basketball season. I know he had a million other things to do, but he wanted this to be done right because it is KU.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is where it all started, and it had to be done properly. And so thanks to Jim and his staff for producing this booklet that comes with the pictures, because without the booklet, it wouldn't be the history lesson that it is.
No, not at all. And Glenn, kind of take us through, obviously we saw the pictures on the screen, but again, that hasn't, we're seeing the pictures right now in front of us. That just does no justice to really how good the 3D pictures look in person. And again, kind of take us through, where can one go to get these pictures? And also I heard there's also a very generous discount going on right now with the pictures. So kind of take us through your guys' latest offer, the discount, and how one can go about getting them and where they can buy them at.
Well, the building that we're in now, in the KU bookstore, they have them, and also in the Oriad shop. They have them at Kansas Sampler stores, Jock's Niche stores. We also are offering online on our website. If you go to our homepage, we teamed up with Wayne Simeon, who is in one of the pictures. He is in the Pay Heed picture.
He's a friend of our show.
Yeah, he's been on our show quite a bit of times.
Yeah,
already,
3 or 4 times this year.
Okay, well, as you guys know, Wayne is, he's just an exceptional guy.
Absolutely.
And he heads up an organization called Call to Greatness.
Yep, he's talked to us a little bit about that.
Okay, and he also works with another charitable organization called Family Promise. And Family Promise helps homeless children and their parents, and does many, many things for them. And so Wayne approached us about helping with his charity, just to ask if we would donate a picture for a raffle that he had at his charity event, I think 2 weeks ago in Allen Fieldhouse, a free throw shooting event.
That's how me and Glenn kind of ran into each other
here. Right. And so I sat down, had lunch with Wayne, and I said, Wayne, we can do so much more with this than that, I think. One of the things when we started this whole concept was we specifically talked about using the KU basketball pictures for good causes. Everything can't be about the almighty dollar and money.
Absolutely.
We wanted to be able to use these for various causes. On our website, you'll see all the charities that we've worked with and donated things to. So Wayne and I had a discussion, and out of that discussion came, okay, let's do a continuing effort to raise money for Wayne's charities. So on our webpage, and this is only available on the website.
And what is the website, real quick? Will you share that with the audience?
It's 3dsportsart.com.
Okay.
If they go to the homepage and scroll down, they'll see the Call to Greatness Family Promise logo.
Okay.
And they simply click on that logo. It takes you right to Wayne's site. And on that site, by entering hashtag charity stripe in the code as the code,
yep,
they will receive a $50 discount on the
Wow.
pictures, and the profits, 30%, go to Wayne's charities.
And obviously, again, Wayne's someone we know very well on
Yeah.
our show, so I think it's a great opportunity for those that are big KU basketball fans that have grown up, watching Kansas basketball, whether it be, Paul Pierce, all the KU greats to come through, to be able to see all these guys on one picture. And again, you saw the picture, but I'm just going to continue to reiterate this. It just does not do justice. You have to get down to it, go to a store, KU bookstore, Kansas Sampler, and just go check out these pictures. Again, if you go online, can you also order them online, Glenn?
You can. You can
Okay.
order 3 ways. You can order online. There's a special order page. For people who aren't comfortable ordering
Yeah.
online, which sometimes are guys like me, there's a toll-free phone number you can call.
Okay.
And there's an order form that you can just download, fill in, and send in
Perfect.
by mail. So there are 3 ways to do it. You don't necessarily have to do it online to accomplish the purchase. So
And again, it would make a great gift, a great,
graduation's coming up.
Mother's Day and
Father's
graduation
Day.
and a great office picture, and again, just a lot of cool things you can do with that. So, Glenn, we just appreciate you sharing kind of the process on how you got started with your pictures. And again, go ahead and get down to KU Sampler, the KU Bookstore, and just check these out. You got the Rock Chalk version, the Rock Chalk Jayhawk version, which lists all 5 of the very popular and well-known national championships for the Jayhawks. And then you got the Pay Heed, Beware the Fog version, which has our good friend Max Falkenstien on there interviewing Clyde and kind of Wilt Chamberlain, and another very cool picture and a lot of sports figures for the Jayhawks. We're going to make a small shift here. We're going to continue talking about sports, obviously, but Matt, we're going to stay with the Great Debate feature, quickly kind of explain what our great debate feature is each week and how we're going to incorporate this in today's show.
Right, so our Great Debate feature is something that we have weekly, and every week we come up with a topic, or I usually come up with a topic, and we will all take turns debating that topic, and then I will pick a winner based on who had the most compelling argument. So for this week...
And do we have the standings for that? Because I think Tim's winning, isn't he?
I probably am.
I do not know them off the top of my head. But I believe Tim did take the lead last week, but I think you may have tied him with the Joe Cornell.
We can tweet about it later.
Absolutely.
But I do not know it off the top of my head. I would have to have my computer in front of me. But regardless, we are going to incorporate Glenn in this week's feature. And so the question for this week is, since Glenn has been such an avid KU basketball fan,
let's let him go first.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the question?
What team would you say is the most dominant or best Kansas basketball team that you have seen perform?
Or maybe just of all time.
Well, that I've seen perform, I might have to go, obviously, with the 08 team since they won the championship. We featured them in one of our pictures. I mean, if you looked at some of the guys on that team, they had some great role players, like, you know, they had Brady, and I think Tyrell was on that team, and who was Cole was just coming up, and I think Sasha was playing ahead of Cole then, and of course I think Sharon, if I remember correctly, Sharon was the first KU player to win the Sixth Man Award, I believe, for the Big 12 that when he played for KU. So I mean that was a heck of a team, but you know, I kind of if you're talking all time, boy, it's hard to argue against the 52 team because of what they accomplished. My gosh, the championship and you know practically the whole Olympic team was composed. The gold medal Olympic team in Helsinki was composed of KU players, and you know, my gosh, they as Max said earlier, those guys still come back and are still close, and so it's hard to argue against them as not being the greatest all-time KU basketball team. having the ones I've seen, I'd have to go with 08.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Tim?
Well,
no, that's a very good argument. I think that's a team that's obviously a team we all grew up watching them, saw the Mario's miracle shot. I remember just getting real excited over, and one of the biggest moments, if not the biggest basketball moment of my life for the Jayhawks. So, Tim, what was your favorite or most memorable team?
Well, this is something that's been brought up a few times on our show because I have a very different background than a lot of KU sports journalists. Where I was not born and raised in Kansas. I was born and raised in Southern California. So really, I've only been a Jayhawk for a year, but I'm as proud as any. So I've been still learning my Jayhawk history. But I did pick a non-championship team, which is probably a very bad choice. But I did pick the 2000.
There were a lot of good non-championship teams.
There were a lot of
Jayhawks
great,
as well.
Yeah, a lot of great non-championship teams. So I picked the 2001-2002 team.
Okay.
I picked a somewhat more recent team just because a lot of these guys, I've been born and raised in the LA area. I've been a huge NBA fan for a long time, and a lot of players on this team are still in the NBA and have had great careers. But this team went 33-4 overall, 16-0 in the Big 12, and that's something that stood out. And they did lose in the Final Four to Maryland, but they had Nick Collison, Drew Gooden, Kirk Heinrich on that team, Keith Langford, Wayne Simeon. He got hurt the next year, but he was a freshman that year. So just a lot of fantastic, kind of KU all-timers who have repped the Jayhawks really well in the NBA.
Yeah, that's another team I remember growing up. Maryland at the time, although they haven't been to another Final Four since then, Juan Dixon was a guy I remember growing up watching him play. He was a very special player in 2002. I remember I cried myself to sleep that night when KU lost because I was a big, Kirk Heinrich fan, Nick Collison fan. I was actually in Indiana, too, where my grandparents lived, and the Hoosiers were in the Final Four that year as well. So there was a lot of activity and a lot of buzz surrounding that 2002 Final Four. For me, I want to go with 2004, 2005, when Kansas fell to Bucknell in the first round. But again, Wayne Simeon was a senior. Aaron Miles was a senior. Keith Langford was a senior. And this was the team that really started the Big 12 streak that has now spanned on for 10 straight seasons. So this was the team that got it all started. Started the streak under Bill Self. And really, since then, both all these guys have been around the Kansas program. Wayne Simeon still lives here today. Aaron Miles was here not too long ago. So to see just how good these guys were playing at KU and just how much they've contributed to the Lawrence community ever since that day, to me, I think they're my hands down probably most talented, most hardworking, and most successful team, even despite not winning or not even going on to the second round in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, for mine, I'm gonna go with a little more recent one.
Okay.
Again, not a championship-winning team. This is one that broke my heart. This was the 09 and 10 Cole Aldrich, Sharon Collins, Xavier Henry team. I thought that, if you look at the amount of players that we had on that team who were able to carry the program for years after, as well as Sharon, who's one of the winningest Jayhawks of all time, surpassed by Tyrell Reed, who was also on that team, coincidentally. I just remember that Northern Iowa game. I was just completely devastated at the end of that one because that was a team that there was no reason they couldn't have run to the title game and taken it. So, again, a disappointing team, but
that's just March Madness for you, too.
Yeah,
It
is.
In my eyes, March Madness could be very well one of the hardest tournaments in the country, if not the world, to really come out on top. Because again, one team out of 68 teams is able to come away with the title, and if you think about it, 67 teams end their season with a loss. One team is able to hoist the trophy in April. So again, that's just a really hard tournament to play in and really to be successful. But again, I think these are all very incredible picks. Again, all just the story program that the Jayhawk basketball teams have had. I think there's really no right or wrong choice. It can really vary from person to person. Let's quickly go and end the show. The time's really been flying by tonight with our weekly picks of the week. Glenn's going to be joining us here. And Tim, go ahead and take us through the picks of the week. You're kind of our NBA analyst on the Pressbox, so kind of give us your rundown on our 4 picks for the week, which all are going to be dealing with the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, so the first round of playoffs have been arguably one of the best of all time. Last year, I think there were 3 or 4 sweeps in the first round, and the Heat have a chance to sweep the Bobcats tonight. But other than that, the rest of the series have been complete chaos for the most part. But we're just going to go through this kind of quickly. The first we have tonight, Spurs are playing Dallas, the 4th game of the series. Dallas is up 2-1 after a Vince Carter miracle buzzer beater in a spot he shot like 25% from in the regular season. Really intense shot. So they're up 2-1, should be down 1-2, but it's the playoffs, so that's how it goes. So yeah, Spurs Dallas is the first pick. Do we want to start this way?
Yeah, let's go this way this time.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Spurs on this one just because I don't think there's any reason that Dallas should be upsetting the Spurs at this point in the year. I mean, yeah, you can chalk that one up to a miracle at the playoffs, but I'm sure the Spurs will win tonight and then carry the series from here out.
So you're going with the Spurs. I'm going to go with the Spurs as well. Again, they're my team that's going to make it to the NBA Finals. I've really enjoyed watching them play. Just, growing up and playing a lot of basketball and really having to work hard on defense to get any playing time. I really respect just how hard the Spurs play on defense. You got Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Tim Duncan, just 3 guys that come together each year, and they're going to give you quality minutes. They're going to play hard from the beginning of the whistle to the end of the whistle, and a team that I think is going to come back in the series and beat their arch rival, the Dallas Mavericks. So I'm going to go with San Antonio on this one.
Yeah, I'm going with San Antonio too. It's probably going to sweep the board. They're just Popovich is probably maybe one of the greatest NBA coaches of all time. Tim Duncan, probably the greatest power forward of all time. They're going to bounce back. They had a bad game. They lost on a buzzer beater. I think they're going to win handily tonight.
Glenn, what do you
I
got?
think they may win the series, but I think Dallas will take them at home tonight.
Okay.
All right.
So Glenn is going with the Mavericks. All right, second pick. Who do we got?
Hawks at Pacers. This series has been way more interesting than it probably should have been. Pacers, #1 seed in the East, are tied 2-2.
That has been a very interesting
Hawks,
series so far.
Yeah, they had a lot of troubles at the end of the regular season, so that one's tied at 2-2. It's at Indianapolis, so it's a home game for the Pacers. That hasn't really meant that much yet. Let's start with Zach again.
I mean, for this one, I was really, really tempted to take the Hawks again, but I think at this point they're at home. It's kind of do or die time for the Pacers to really get some momentum and carry it into the next round if they don't want this series to go to 7. So I'm going to take the Pacers in this one.
All right. Real quick, Brennan.
I'm going to go with the Indiana Pacers as well. Just a tough team again. Very good defensive team. So I'm going to stay with the defensive mindset, and I'm going to go with the Pacers.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me to pick because Jeff Teague's been playing at a whole nother level in this playoffs. But I'm just going to go with the Pacers. I think they're going to close out the series with 2 more wins, but I think they're probably going to have a ton of troubles with the Wizards.
And the fact that it's a home game, too. That helps the
I have
Pacers.
to agree with you guys on the Pacers.
Yeah.
I think they'll take it.
Pacers are a very tough team, and I think one of the preseason favorites to win it all. All right, who's our third pick?
Third, we have Golden State at Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers, my team, who have
little controversy.
Having some controversy.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
That we will be talking about next week for sure. We'll be breaking that down. But just speaking purely basketball related, Golden State at Clippers, that'll be tomorrow. That series is tied at 2-2 and has had each team's gotten a blowout victory. So it's been an interesting series. What do you think, Zach?
I mean, I know you said purely for basketball reasons, but I mean, you got to consider this thing in context. And I think I was listening to Doc Rivers' press conference today, or I guess conference call, but I was listening to him, and you could just kind of hear it in his voice that team, I mean, he told them that they kind of need to win to keep this issue under the spotlight and really get a change made. So I think, if nothing else, for that reason, the Clippers are going to carry the rest of the series.
I'm going to go with the Warriors on this one. I'm a big fan of Stephon Curry all the way back to watching him play at Davidson. I think he's going to be a future All-Star in the NBA, if not already. Yeah, he already is. So I'm going to go with the Warriors. They're going to get a tough road victory.
Yeah, the Clippers are going to be really distracted with everything that's going on, but it's going to be a really interesting game. I really have no idea what's going to happen in terms of just everyone's emotions and stuff, but I do think the Clippers will bounce back. Both these teams have been excellent at home all season, so I think they'll get the win.
I think because of Doc Rivers, the Clippers can win this.
Yeah, he's a great
He's
coach.
the reason.
Yeah, I think he's the only one who could possibly carry a team through this sort of a controversy.
Yeah,
I firmly believe that.
Mark Jackson is definitely emerging, and I think he'll be a great coach in the NBA someday, but he's still pretty young.
Yeah, he's no Doc Rivers.
Not at all.
Definitely not. But let's just go through and say our picks because we're really running out of time. Memphis, Oklahoma City, tied at 2-2. Zach?
Oklahoma City.
I'm going to go with the Grizzlies on this one. No, actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm going with the Thunder.
Okay.
I'm going with the Thunder on this one.
I'm going with the Grizzlies. I think they're just such a tough team. Although Durant just had a bad game, I think he'll bounce back.
Oklahoma City for me.
All right.
And again, you can follow us at Twitter at the Pressbox KJHK, and also Glenn's 3D Sports Art. That is going to be at 3D Sports Art. So check those out on Twitter. We love to get you guys' interactions. Follow us, and do us a favor. Go down to the bookstore. Go down to the KU Sampler downtown. Check out Glenn's pictures, and again, you're going to just see how how really good and the high quality these pictures truly are. So, Glenn, thank you so much for joining
Thank you
us
guys for having
on
me.
our
It's a
show.
pleasure.
And big thanks to Max Falkenstien
and
as well
again,
for
thanks,
joining us.
thanks to Max and Rock Chalk Jayhawk. We will see you next week for what is going to be our final show of the year. So
Went fast, didn't it?
We got a lot to talk about next week. See you then.